Hey guys, KangaskKid18 here, and courtesy of Game Freak, we finally got another look at Pokemon Sword and Shield. Before we do that, however, I want to take the time to address the Dexit controversy. Now, I'm obviously extremely disappointed to hear that some of my favorite Pokemon may not be available in the Galar region, and that they cannot be transferred at a later date, which is honestly something that we as Pokemon fans should be used to. I remember in the days of Pokemon X and Y when we waited over a month for Pokemon Bank to be released, so that we could bulk transfer our collection from previous generations. This moment is special to me because as a direct consequence of this, I received my shiny charm for the first time and truly became a shiny hunter, leading me down the road to the living shiny dex. But sadly, my living shiny dex will not be viewable in the full HD that these games promise to offer, and I can't tell you how disappointed I am by that. I worked literal years for this collection, and on Game Freak's whim, they've completely nixed my chances. I can only hope Pokemon Home has a better graphic user interface than Pokemon Bank did. If 3D models are viewable in HD on Home, I think I can rest happy. But despite the fact that many of these Pokemon will exist on Pokemon Home, Game Freak seemingly refuses to allow Pokemon that do not appear in the Galar Dex to be transferable to Sword and Shield. Most fans would be fine with this if they were to be patched in at a later time, but Game Freak has pretty much outright refused this option. There are just too many new and improved animations, they claim, and most people think that this refers to battle animations, where obviously they're wrong. While most Pokemon do have an improved entrance animation, the idle and attack animations remain the same. However, what does look to be improved are the animations from the seemingly expanded Pokemon Me feature, rumored to be called Pokemon Camping, where you'll be able to interact with your Pokemon in a more detailed way. I understand why this could be difficult from Game Freak's standpoint, but there are several options here. A. Don't allow Pokemon from outside the Galar Dex to use the Pokemon Camp feature. Or B. Patch these Pokemon in later, but unfortunately Game Freak refuses to do this, which leaves option C. Hire the proper amount of goddamn staff that it requires to properly make a goddamn video game. I'm sure Game Freak likes being a small developer with a tight-knit staff, but on some level you've got to expand or you'll fall behind, and that seems to be what we're dealing with right now. While I'd like to vote with my dollar on this issue, I came to the realization a long time ago that no Pokemon game is going to be perfect, and that it's better for my sanity to just focus on the many positives of each new entry into the franchise rather than the negatives. So with the rant out of the way, let's take a look at some of those positives. The new features we got to see in yesterday's trailer. There are a couple of new characters, most notably the definitely not evil Chairman Rose and his assistant Oleana. I've never seen a character that looks so blatantly European just by his character design, but man, they really nailed it with this Chairman Rose fella. Following up from that are some version exclusive gym leaders, the scrappy fighting type specialist Bee, and the macabre ghost type leader Alistair. I actually think this feature is pretty cool. Having different gym leaders in different games somehow makes the two versions seem that much more unique from one another, and therefore almost worth the price of buying both. Almost. In addition to that, we saw more of Nessa, who I've been noticing something kinda weird about that nobody seems to be picking up on. I mean, look at her. She's a water-type gym leader. Her name is Nessa. And then there's this thing she says just before battling you. I need about 350. Well, it was about that time I realized this gym leader was actually an 8-story tall crustacean from the Paleolithic era. I mean, never mind, that's just Gigantamax Dreadnought. Yeah, we gotta look at Gigantamax, a new feature that seems to be Sword and Shield's answer to Mega Evolution. Only the Pokemon are like 100 feet tall, and don't change much. And overall, this feature is super lame. I was never a fan of Dynamaxing to begin with, but for some reason they felt the need to expand it even further. Perhaps my opinion will change once I actually play the game, but for now, I'll be using Dynamax and Gigantamax as little as is humanly possible. But in all of this, there is some good news. We got to look at some fantastic new Pokemon, starting with Yamper, the puppy Pokemon. Now, I'm a dog person, and while I find most Pokemon based on domesticated dogs and cats to be a little trite, Yamper is just too cute to hate. He's got an adorable new ability called Ball Fetch, wherein Yamper will return a Pokeball to you if you fail to catch a wild Pokemon. In any case, onto the shinies here. Now I have a couple of ideas in mind for Yamper, and they've been ruminating ever since this Pokemon was first revealed at E3. My first choice would turn Yamper into a navy blue overall, with its collar getting a nice cyan color, and some of the other highlights turning a nice pink. I think this looks great. I love blue and pink shinies, and the cyan really offsets everything in a nice way, but perhaps it's just not blue and pink enough. What if we were to do this exact same thing, but switch the cyan and pink colors? I think this looks great as well, and honestly can't choose which version I like more. All I know is that I definitely want one of these two shinies for Yamper. However, I think there's another option. Yamper's got a lot of yellow going on normally, which is fine and dandy as he's an electric type Pokemon. Overall, these colors are very reminiscent of the Pembroke Welsh Corgi that the Queen of England is so fond of. But there are other Corgis out there, and so I say we make Shiny Yamper resemble that. In this case, primarily black, but with light orange on the collar and tail, and with the other highlights getting a deep golden color. And while I certainly prefer my blue and pink shinies from earlier, it's hard to deny that this version of Yamper is simply freaking adorable. Moving on, we've got a bit of an abstract Pokemon in Rolycoly. I usually dislike Pokemon designs the more abstract they are. Remember that for later on. But with Rolycoly, I don't know, at first I thought, great, this is just a rock, big whoop. But then the way it rolls around on its little wheel is kinda cute, and so I guess it's alright. All I know is that it's probably going to evolve into a minecart, where the 4 Rolycoly all make up the 4 wheels. But anyway, on to the shinies. Now I mentioned that Rolycoly has a pretty abstract design, and this makes it difficult to design shinies for. But let's begin with an old standby, turning the Pokemon dark purple overall with a neon purple eye. This is pretty similar to the shiny that was given to Roggenrola back in Generation 5, and the two Pokemon are kind of reminiscent of one another. But another option could be to turn Rolycoly jade green with a golden eye. Not my favorite shiny in the world, but like I said, these were hard to design, and the green and gold really play well off each other. But I think my favorite option might be a little crazy, and it plays off the mine theme that Rolycoly's got. Here, let's turn the Colbits a dark black, the eye a neon green, and the back this kind of brown rock color with flecks of golden ore. I really like the look of this shiny, and while it reminds me a lot of Shiny Alolan Graveler, I think the Colbits make it cool enough to stand on its own. At the very least, it is certainly a fitting shiny, although despite how cool I think it is, I'd say it's actually pretty unlikely, and I doubt that Game Freak will go for it. In any case, let's move on to our next newly revealed Pokemon today. It's Doral Adhan, the Alloy Pokemon. I mentioned before how much I hate abstractly designed Pokemon, and boy, Doral Adhan takes the cake. I don't know why we need a weird spaceship ballistic missile looking dragon type, and yet, here we are. I'm not gonna dwell on this one too much. Just know that I hate it. But maybe there's still some hope. A great shiny can certainly save a craptastic design like Doral Adhan. So let's get going. First off, Doral Adhan is normally an off-white color overall. So for our first shiny, let's ramp that all up and turn it gold with bronze highlights, green eyes, and a turquoise cap to whatever that is on top of its head. Do you see why abstract Pokemon are the worst? Anyway, forget that. And instead, let's go a little crazy and turn Doral Adhan purple overall with turquoise highlights, a black eye, and a dark purple cap. I think this one is at the very least intriguing, and while I don't think Game Freak would go this direction, it does improve upon the design that we've got. But I think that there's a much more likely option here. As I mentioned earlier, Doral Adhan is normally off-white overall, but how about we go a little subtle on this shiny, turning it a pure gleaming white instead, with dark blue on the highlights and a lighter blue for the cap. Hey, sometimes subtle just works, man. It's somehow much cleaner looking than before, sterile, and more futuristic. It's pretty simple, yet effective. A shiny that is highly likely from Game Freak's end, and in my opinion, I think this is the best possible shiny for Doral Adhan. Finally, let's move on to the last new Pokemon revealed today. It's the fairy type Alcremie. This Pokemon is clearly based off some kind of a whipped cream dessert, and in the past I made it clear in no uncertain terms that I have a disdain for Pokemon that are based off food. Vanillite, Vanillux, Swirlix, and Slurpuff. I kind of hate them all, but for some reason I kind of like Alcremie. Maybe I'm losing my touch in my old age, but in my opinion, Alcremie is alright. Totally acceptable, likable even. Maybe it's because I think that Alcremie has the potential to have some amazing shinies, so let's get down to it. Now Alcremie is supposed to be a whipped cream Pokemon, right? But does that slightly pink hue look like any whipped cream you've ever seen? No, right? So let's turn Alcremie a pure white instead, with blueberries on top of its head and blue eyes. I think this looks like a dessert that I would totally eat, as blueberries are in fact some of my favorite fruits. But there also seems to be something missing just a little bit. So how about we turn the blueberries into blackberries instead? For some reason, this makes the design really pop, and if I had my choice, this is 100% the shiny that I would give to Alcremie. But for some reason, I've got this nagging feeling that Game Freak just can't help themselves, that they'll take shiny Alcremie and against their better judgment, turn it into chocolate mousse instead, with pink pink for the berries and eyes. I don't know why I find this shiny so likely for Alcremie, it's just that it seems almost a little too obvious. But if it comes to this, I do think that the brown and pink offset each other really well. If this does end up being the shiny, I think I could absolutely look past the fact that it looks exactly like the poop emoji. Alright guys, that's all I've got for you today. Pokemon Sword and Shield seems to be looking better with every new trailer we've been given, and while I'm understandably upset that my full shiny collection will not exist in these games, I've chosen to focus on the positive, and I look forward to exploring the Galar region in these new games. I very much anticipate seeing what comes next. Thanks for watching guys, and as always, we are gonna see you on the next Shiny.